This Thursday, I have Lucas Foster on. Lucas is a member of the U.S. national team of U.S. ski and snowboard on the halfpipe, gunning for the podium in 2022. We talked about snowboarding, how Lucas gives back, his training regimen, male masculinity, identity, and health. Check out his Instagram, link in the description. All right, so how's your day been?
My day's been good. Just a mellow morning. Just hanging out in Colorado, getting outside. Weather's been good, and yeah, enjoying some downtime. How about you?
My day's been good. I just got up. What time is it over there?
It is 11:02. I'm in Mountain Standard Time, so
Oh,
an
okay, so
hour
it's
hour
you're only
ahead
I
of you.
heard.
Yeah,
Yeah. So have you lived in Colorado all your life?
yeah. I'm born and raised in Telluride, Colorado. So whole life.
I- Is there any time throughout the year where there's not snow there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in some places in Colorado, it's super like desert-like. So there's some places that just don't get snow. I mean, I guess everywhere gets snow at some point in the year, but like up high, there's snow year round, like in the mountains that are 13,000 feet and above. But down lower, there's definitely places that get super hot and snow melts quick. So right now it's been really hot, so it's summertime for sure.
So how did you first get into snowboarding?
I got into snowboarding when I was like 7 years old, and it was all just from my mom and dad. I started skiing first when I was like two, and then growing up when I was real little, I just wanted to do whatever my dad was doing, and he was still is super into snowboarding. That's his passion too. So I just wanted to get into it because he was doing it, and yeah, he got me on a board. Yeah, 8 years old or so, and just kind of learned by riding with him and my mom for a couple of years, just kind of riding with them, not really caring about riding in the park or half pipe or anything, just free riding with my family. And then it's just all went up from there.
So what age did you start discovering that you wanted to turn this into something bigger?
I don't even know if it was like really a certain time in my life, but I'd say just as I got older, I've always been super competitive, so I always had like the urge to get better at snowboarding, whether it was for a reason or not. But I'd say when I was like 15, like 14, 15, I got a little more like I started discovering, I guess, that I had some potential to like take it even farther than where I was at the time. And at the so I'd say at that age, then it really just all came from just I just loved snowboarding, and I was like, oh, if you could do this for a living, you know, why not? Why not go for it? So kind of just kept going from there, and that's why I still do it. Just because I enjoy the lifestyle, and it's kind of made me who I am. And yeah, I'm having a blast doing it.
Yeah, I know a lot of snowboarders say it's like skateboarding or like surfing. Have you done any of those
Yeah,
sports as well?
yeah. I've been skateboarding for longer than I've been snowboarding. That's like kind of my other passion, right on par with snowboarding. So that's kind of where my roots are is skating, and I get a lot of my inspiration from the skateboard culture, and that's huge in my life for sure.
So what does your training regimen look like?
Um, I've always been super passionate about you know, staying fit off the snow. I had a lot of mentors early on in my life that taught me all about health and wellness, and super fortunate for that. But I definitely work out a lot more just for myself, and my snowboarding obviously benefits, indirectly from that. But I don't think snowboarding is the only reason that I care about my body. But in the summertime when I'm not snowboarding, I'm in the gym like 3 to 4 days a week. I guess doing Olympic lifts and stuff and heavy lift days. But I pretty much like quote train or whatever you want to call it every day. There's always something that I do to keep my body healthy and my mind healthy. So, strength training, uh, stretching a lot, doing some forms of yoga, meditation, eating certain foods and cutting out certain foods, and Yeah, definitely take that seriously, mainly just because I enjoy, making my body feel 100%, whether I'm snowboarding or not. It just feels better to take care of your body. But yeah, I guess there's a lot that I do, a lot of different stuff, just kind of a holistic approach to training, blending it all together.
Yeah, how did you get into meditation?
I got into meditation. I mean, my mom got me into it at first when I was like maybe 10 or 11 because she was into it, and I kind of like toyed around with it a couple times. But it wasn't until I was like 15 where I actually started to take it a little more seriously or did it a little more often. My trainer, he's like one of the smartest guys that I know when it comes to mental, emotional wellness and physical wellness too. Obviously, since he's a trainer, but he got me into like qigong exercises and active meditation and kind of just turned me on to this whole new side of uh, mindfulness, I guess. And then I also had some family friends of mine that they've been kind of studying meditation, the Eastern approach, learning in countries like India and stuff. And they got me into some other forms when I was like 16, 17. And so I had a couple different people that got me into it, but it's huge, man. It's played a huge role in my life. And I kind of enjoy, approaching it from different angles. There's a lot of different ways to meditate, and you'll get, different benefits from each side. So, yeah, those three people were huge though, in helping me get into that. And then I also have the U.S. team has a sports psychologist that has given us some cool meditation exercises that I've been doing that I enjoy. So, a couple different people actually.
Yeah, so you would say that it's improved your life since you started.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Like life is so, especially, I'm 20 years old and I'm living kind of a fast-paced life, doing a lot of stuff all the time, and it's super crucial to take that time each day to just think about nothing, and obviously it's hard to be really consistent with it, but even if you can do it a couple times a week, it's crucial to just keeping yourself sane, and it really helps to just think in a more rational way and make better decisions when you are in a pinch. So it's changed my life on so many levels. If I, anytime that I'm having a hard time or if I'm struggling with something or getting anxious or whatever, I always look back and like, oh, I haven't been meditating. Need to sit for a bit.
Right, right. Especially being as busy as it seems you are with snowboarding and skateboarding. And I saw that you have like a lot of sponsors.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It gets hectic sometimes. It's obviously like I have a blast snowboarding. That's the only reason I do it. But at the same time, traveling year round it takes a toll on your body and your mind. And yeah, you gotta break away from the whirlwind sometimes and just chill and remember that that you're a part of something even greater than just whatever your job is or whatever sport you're playing. There's a lot more to you know you gotta just remember there's more things to do apart from the physical aspect of life.
Right. So you're on the U.S. national snowboard team, right?
Yeah, yeah, for half pipe.
Okay. How does that work? Like, how do you get recruited into something like that?
They have like certain criteria that you got to meet that they have on their published on their website. There's like two different tiers of the team, and the only real big difference between the rookie team and the pro team. I'm still on the rookie team, but the pros they just get a little more funding for their team. So the rookies we just pay for certain expenses and but pretty much like to make the team, they have their criteria that's like kind of results based. there's a couple different criterias. There's the result-based one, and then there's the you know, if you're a certain rank in the world, uh, that gets you on. But there's also coach's discretion, where maybe you don't meet the criteria, but the coaches know that you have the ability to, or if you have an injury that sets you back that season from making the team, or making the criteria, they can just kind of put you on because they know that you have some ability or whatever. I got on the team my first year was in 2018, and I got on from coach's discretion, which was cool. And I didn't really expect that, to be honest. I didn't have I had an okay season that year, but yeah. So there's a couple ways you can make it, but those are the two main ways, I guess.
I see. And you're trying to get in for 2022, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'll be super stoked to go to the Olympics. Um, like whenever you're on the U.S. team, when you're on the national team, it doesn't guarantee you a spot on the Olympic team at all. Like you don't even need to be on the national team to make the Olympics. There's some riders that never did the U.S. team and stuff, but yeah, the qualifying for the Olympics kind of starts this coming winter. So we all kind of are at the same spot, whether you're a rookie or a pro. You have to meet the same criteria to make the Olympics, and we all have like the an equal chance of making it. So yeah, it'll be exciting to see what happens. But I definitely want to try and go.
Yeah. So do you have any coaches?
Yeah, for sure. Back home in Telluride, I have a guy named Jason Cannon, and he's pretty much he serves a lot of different areas for me. But that was the trainer I was talking about earlier that got me into certain types of meditation. So he's like my off snow strength and conditioning coach, nutritionist, physical therapist. Like he pretty much covers every single area when it comes to off snow training. I'll stick with him whether I'm snowboarding or not, just because he's one of the smartest dudes I know when it comes to taking care of your body and your mind. He's got a super in depth background, and he spent a lot of time studying all this stuff. So, and he also coached me a little bit on snow. He was a pro snowboarder back in the 90s, so he totally knows the ropes when it comes to being a pro. So I got him, but my main coach for like on snow stuff is JJ Thomas, and he's the coach for us on the U.S. team. And JJ's the man. He coached Sean White at the last Olympics. JJ got a bronze medal himself at the 2002 Olympics in Salt Lake City or in Park City. Won the X Games too. So JJ, he's a total legend in snowboarding. And then there's also Ricky Bauer and Rick Shimpano. They're the two other coaches for the U.S. team that work with us rookies a little bit too, and they're the ones that put me on the team at first anyway. So those guys have been huge roles in my career. They kind of saved my career to some degree, put me on the team a couple years ago. But those are the main three guys that I work with. So super blessed to have them.
If you get into the 2022 Olympics, you get on the podium, what would be your next step from there?
That's a good question. I know I'll definitely keep snowboarding as long as I can. It's hard to say if I'll continue competing like for a super long time. I personally don't know if I'll keep competing, you know, till I'm like 30 years old in snowboarding. I probably will continue competing a bit, especially if I podium in the Olympics. I'd probably go for another, but there's a lot of other things that I definitely want to do beyond snowboarding. And I've always kind of dreamed about getting back into competing and skating again. I used to compete in skateboarding a lot when I was younger. I still do here and there, but that's kind of just a fantasy, I guess. But it's totally not impossible either. So maybe there's a lot of things that I want to do in skateboarding, regardless whether it's competing or just certain tricks that are kind of risky that I will hold myself back from doing right now because I'm like, oh, I can't get hurt for snowboarding. Um, so yeah, maybe get back into, maybe just ramp up skateboarding a little more. But I still want to be involved in snowboarding. I've always dreamed of, filming for snowboard movies. That's another huge uh, side of snowboarding beyond competing. There's a lot of guys that make snowboard films and just film. They're pretty much just called video parts, and you go out into the backcountry, which is like not on a ski area, and you're kind of just it's more of like the artistic side of snowboarding where you get to create this video with no rules. And I've always dreamed of filming one of those or several of those. So we'll see, but yeah, I'll definitely always be involved in snowboarding, and but it'd be cool to kind of experiment with other projects beyond competitive snowboarding.
Yeah. Yeah, I always see like this is probably like an inaccurate representation, but I always see like snowboarders on National Geographic or something that get dropped off in a helicopter on top of a giant cliff and just like make their whole way down. Uh do you ever like see yourself
Yeah,
doing something like that?
totally. Yeah, like that's really the roots of snowboarding. It all kind of started with guys like that were just, you know, it had nothing to do with competing back in the day. It was just all about kind of like what what peak can you snowboard down, or what handrail can you board slide down. And that's where the roots really started, I guess, or began in snowboarding. And that's really, I think, the most respectable side of snowboarding is those guys that get dropped off in a helicopter and drop in a peak because there's things called avalanches, obviously, that are super common on steep peaks like that. So you're not only you're not just trying to make it down the mountain, but you're also kind of like rolling the dice on Mother Nature totally ripping a huge piece of not a piece of snow, just a huge ripping a huge face of snow all down on you, and tons of people die from dropping peaks like that, not due to them being bad at snowboarding, but them just you know rolling the dice and getting caught in avalanches. So that stuff right there is like next level. But I definitely that's been a dream of mine to uh, snowboard stuff like that.
Right. So what are some of like the biggest things that you've learned on this journey so far?
Man, I've learned a lot. I mean, a lot of the mentors that I've had, or a lot of the coaches that I've had in my snowboarding career, they've really taught me a lot about things that you know don't really relate to snowboarding. Stuff that's a lot bigger than snowboarding, just more revolving around, um, I guess, the purpose of life and stuff like that. Um, I've met like my coach Jason, my off snow dude. He's really taught me all about just how, I guess, how do I word it? He's taught me all about just kind of like becoming a true man and a true leader. And I've learned a lot about leadership from people like that. I've learned a lot about, um, you know, kind of how to find purpose in your life. Like I found snowboarding at an early age, and I'm like, all right, this is my thing, and this is what's going to keep me kind of on a real straight path in life. It's going to keep me from getting distracted and getting into stupid stuff that don't really matter at the end of the day. I've learned, I've got to travel all over the world, and I think that that's the best education anyone could ever get is seeing different cultures and seeing kind of how people, um, other people in this world function and stuff. My dad has always told me that that's something uh, that really hits home with me. That my dad always has told me is like traveling the world is the best education. You get to really see how humans actually function all over the world, and there's so much, but yeah, it's taught me a lot about discipline and leadership, and it's really given me a whole platform to just kind of create and like inspire people. And I think that's what life is all about. But yeah, snowboarding teaches you way more than just how to how to ride well. It teaches you how to just totally get the most out of life. So that's the most special thing I've learned.
Yeah. So like outside of skateboarding, snowboarding, what else do you like to do?
I'm super into kind of just learning about different ways for humans to fully kind of optimize their lives. I'm super into health and wellness. That's always been super interesting to me. I've been really into cooking lately, learning about food and how that plays a role in our lives. Um, I've been super into traveling, obviously. That's a huge passion of mine, not only to snowboard and skate, but just to see other places. Um, that's something I'll probably always kind of be addicted to is seeing new places, meeting new people. And yeah, lately I've been super into kind of learning about, like I said earlier, how I've learned a lot about leadership and, you know, how to really be a good example to the people that come after us. That's a huge thing that I'm learning about and something I strongly believe in. So, and then I just have a lot of different interests as far as like, becoming more into business, I guess, and starting businesses and kind of learning about that whole side of life. There's so much out there to learn, and I like learning. So that's kind of like what comes next for me beyond snowboarding and skating. It's just learning about how to make the most out of this life and how do you make this world a better place. What are you going to leave this planet when you leave?
Right. Do you have any like specific figures that you learn a lot from or draw inspiration from?
Yeah, for sure. I've learned a whole lot from a guy named Paul Chek, who's a super legendary pioneer in the fitness and health and wellness world. He's actually who my trainer Jason learned from, and Paul's trained a ton of different top athletes throughout his career, and he's just got like the most insane track record of keeping people healthy, pretty much, and taking these insane problems like health issues that doctors don't want to mess with, and using functional medicine and certain corrective exercise and certain, I guess, diet and lifestyle techniques and helping these people recover. But Paul's taught me, or a lot of Paul's material has taught me so much about how to keep my body healthy and how that plays a role in my mind and how that all really boils down to like how you're gonna give to this world. And so guys like that, and a guy named Elliot Hulse who also worked with Paul a lot back in the day. Elliot is huge in kind of making men strong again. That's like his. That's what his mission is. That's what he kind of like revolves his whole business around. Is like, how do we make men leaders again in this world? And that's a whole nother topic of discussion. His big deal is like the root of a lot of the issues in this world is men are more, they're weaker than ever. And, he's really helped me just kind of like fully optimize my leadership skills so that I can be a solid leader in this world to the best of my ability. By no means am I perfect. But Elliot Hulse and then other guys, a lot of pro skateboarders have played huge roles in my life. A guy named Tyshawn Jones, who's around my age, he's a he's already won skateboarder of the year, and he's super into things beyond skating, and he's kind of using his skateboarding as a platform to propel himself into a whole new way of giving back to his family, his friends, and his city. He's from New York City, and he's doing a lot of cool stuff out there. So uh, those guys are huge, and obviously my parents have played a huge role in my life too. My mom, my dad, they're both amazing people, and they've supported me since day one. And I got tons of respect for my mom and dad, obviously. And yeah, it would take a book to really explain all the people that have played huge roles in my life, but there's so many. Jesse Stewart, who you had on a couple weeks ago, he's uh he's been super super valuable in my life, and he's really taught me a whole new uh, showed me a whole new side of like giving back. You know, using my snowboarding career to kind of give back to those who have fought for our country since he's a veteran.
Yeah, yeah, Jesse's an awesome dude. He's like super humble.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah, so making men strong again. Do you think that like masculinity is like dying off?
I do. I think there's a lot of, personally, I think there's a lot in our world that is kind of making men question themselves more than ever. And anytime a man starts to question himself, I think um, puts them in a dicey situation, especially if they're a father or if they are, in a position of leadership. Anytime you're kind of not, uh, really in control of yourself, it doesn't mean you need to be in control of everything in your life because of obviously there's some things that whether that we all have to do as human beings to kind of like adapt to the country we live in or the rules that are surrounding us. But yeah, I think I see a lot of relationships and people around me kind of like a lot of stuff kind of just being destroyed in their lives due to them not having solid leadership skills of themselves and in turn in other people. And I think, you know, I personally have learned the value of self leadership and how do you become, how do you really use your masculinity to your full potential? How do you balance the feminine and the masculine equally so that you can be a solid leader while also not letting your masculinity ruin yourself? Because that's totally possible too. Um, so yeah, I think there's a lot that we can change in this world to kind of make men stronger, and it's a really big issue in my opinion that needs to, it's getting better. There's a lot of things in this world that also are helping making men strong again, but yeah, I think it's crucial. It speaks out to me too because I see, you know, I I was once a young kid that was not uh, taking ownership in my life and taking keeping myself accountable for mistakes that I was making, and I had to learn how to I had to do certain things to become a man, you know, and that means when I say become a man, it doesn't mean the classic stereotype of like, oh, go to the gym and get buff and never cry. It's like you got to become a man and have values, have morals, and stick to those, and you don't let anything get in the way of that. That's true alpha, in my opinion.
Right, and it seems like society now kind of promotes the more femininity side of men and not taking accountability and not really becoming these like it almost promotes being immature for longer periods of their life, right? Like you're 20 and you seem very mature, but there's a lot of people that are a lot later in life who haven't really reached that maturity peak yet.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it all really boils down, yeah, to like the society really promotes like there's a lot of money to be made in telling men and women. It happens on both sides, telling men and women that they aren't good enough or that they need this or that to for their lives to be better, and that indirectly programs our minds into thinking like, okay, we need to look outside of ourselves to figure out what we need in our lives. We look around, we look at society, and we kind of we don't catch ourselves doing this, but we oftentimes will notice that a lot of the things that we come to believe in life, they weren't actually things that we kind of formulated in our heads. It was more given to us from whether it's your parents or social media or your friends. They were the ones telling you, oh, you need to be doing this by this age, or you need to be smoking weed and drinking beers in your junior year of high school, or else you're a weirdo. Or, oh, if you aren't going to college, then you're going to miss out on the experience. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Everyone has a different way of looking at life. But for me, I think um, all that stuff really emasculates a man. Anything that's not giving you some sort of purpose or some sort of responsibility has the risk. Not to say it's always going to. I'm just saying it has the risk of taking you away from your true manhood. But I'm all for having fun and doing all that stuff. But you got to really just make sure your core is uh, rooted in your values, or else you're at risk. Your foundation's got to be rock solid. If your foundation is rock solid in your life, then going out and partying a little bit is all good, because then you have the balls to stand up whenever it becomes an issue.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. Like I see that a lot, growing up with a lot of some of my friends and stuff. I don't see eye to eye with some of them on this stuff, which is all good. It's never anything personal, but I see it around me a lot where people my age and people even older than me, just their minds are focused on I'm not going to say the wrong things, but just things that me personally, I don't see as much of a long-term return, long-term in yeah, return on, time investment. They're more focused on image or more focused on, um, stuff that might satisfy them short term, but down the road it might harm them long term. And I've always been a big believer in like thinking long term. Like, what am I doing right now that's going to benefit me 5 years from now? That's the stuff that really matters.
Yeah, and I'm sure that mentality, it probably puts you in a position where you get along better with older people, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man. Like a lot of my best friends are a lot older than me, like which is cool. And I think I'm super blessed to have friends that are like I wouldn't be learning about this stuff if it wasn't for older people, wiser people, being around me. And I've been lucky enough to kind of see eye to eye with them on a lot of this stuff, and it's led to a lot of cool opportunities. It's given me more of a like a lot of these coaches that I have in my life have became, my best friends due to stuff like this. But it also isn't it's not like if I didn't have this way of thinking that we wouldn't be friends because, the coaches I have are the coolest people I've ever met. So I'm sure whether I was like this or not, we'd still be homies. But yeah, I think the connection with those type of people is, you know, a lot stronger due to that.
Yeah. So earlier you mentioned like giving back, right, from snowboarding. Is that
Mhm.
is that what you do by visiting VA clinics?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's a big part of it. I mean, and it's you can give back in so many ways in snowboarding, but that's been one of the most like fulfilling ones because I've really through Jesse, he's really taught me about how veterans are affected whenever they are discharged from the military, and how Jesse's story is amazing in the sense of like it was his whole life revolved around being a ranger, and once he was medically retired, his whole identity wrapped around being a ranger. And once that was taken from him, he was like, what do I have now? And I think every human goes through that at some point where they get so wrapped up in their career or whatever, and once that's taken from them, they don't know who they are. So I think with veterans, it's been cool because they have done so much for our country, and snowboarding, and I hope I can do this with skateboarding too, because skateboarding is equally as fulfilling as snowboarding. It's cool because those guys, they get on a snowboard or they learn about snowboarding, and it's the most fun thing in the world. You don't even have to compete at all. You can just cruise around and have fun, just like my dad does. He just loves snowboarding to death. He's an amazing rider, but he's not trying to be a pro or anything. He's just doing it for just having fun. And these veterans, it can give them a whole new purpose in life. It's like that's what I like to do is snowboard, and it can save them from you know getting into drugs and alcohol or from suicide. There's so many ways that it benefits you know the veteran community, and it's just cool to recognize what they've done for our country and the citizens of the US. And I just want to share snowboarding with as many people as possible. That's really the real core of what I want to do is share snowboarding, make it easy for people to get on a snowboard, make it just more accessible for everybody because it's changed my life and given me a whole purpose, and it's given me it's a whole lifestyle. It's not just an activity you do, it's a lifestyle. So
Yeah, it's awesome that you want to take that passion that's given you so much and try to give it to other people in order to help them.
yeah, yeah, totally, man. Like that's the real like I said, that's the core of snowboarding. It's just a passion. It's a lifestyle, it's an art form, and it doesn't matter if you're, you know, my age or if you're 60 years old or if you're from Texas or um, you know, whatever state you're from, whatever country you're from, whatever your race or your gender is, anyone can snowboard and anyone can bring their own little kind of style and spice to snowboarding, and it's accepted. You're never gonna there's no rules at all, and it just brings a lot of people together from different areas of life, and uh, it's the most it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen because we live in a world that's very separated where a lot of people are separated by things like gender and race, which sucks. We need things like snowboarding to bring us all together. um, so I'm a big obviously I'm a big believer in snowboarding, skateboarding.
Yeah. Why do you think we're so separated?
Man, I think there's so many things that kind of contribute to it. I think it really boils down to how you were raised. That really is the foundation for all kids, and we all have parents. We all were children at one point, and from the moment you're born till the day you die, you kind of see this world, and we live in a world where, like I said earlier, things like the media and social media, they tell us kind of what products we need. They tell us what to kind of believe in, even though, we do have the freedom to think for ourselves. We're on kind of a thin sheet of ice where we're all at risk of kind of like just going along with narratives, and we kind of adopt some of those narratives from our family or from friends or from school. And like politics is a great example. There's obviously you can be unaffiliated or you can be a Democratic you know supporter or Republican supporter, and things like that are really risking or like putting us at risk for separation, where they're pitting us against each other, which sucks. It'd be really awesome if we could live in a world where we just respected our differences. But and like I said earlier too, there's a lot of money to be made in kind of us hating on other things, and people like telling us like, oh, this company sucks for this reason, so you need to buy this product from us or whatever. And but yeah, I think it really does boil down to how were you raised, and like who were your like what were your morals growing up? Was it uh, religion is a big one too, which is unfortunate because all religion, everyone should have the freedom, and they do have the freedom to believe in their own religion and stuff. But that doesn't mean that someone's going to tell you that you're wrong. And yeah, I guess that's the best way I could put it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think media is like a really big one, and
Yeah,
um they push almost an agenda to be divided, and if you go against it, you're kind of seen as evil in some regard.
yeah, it's really sad, man. Like I 100% uh, am on board with that too. Like I really think that not think like I've observed that there's just a lot of money to be made in uh, you know, telling us what we need and what we don't need or what's good and what's bad. If we didn't have that kind of narrative, if companies didn't use that as their narrative, they wouldn't make as much money. Like pharmaceutical companies or like a big one for like skincare and stuff, like a lot of the beauty products out there for women. Like no wonder there's a lot of confidence issues with women these days because if you're on social media and you're just seeing all these companies with these, models that are like promoting some skincare product, you're just seeing people that are like put on a pedestal that really aren't above you in any way. They're just, promoting a product. So you automatically think like, oh, this person's like, a star. Those people telling you like, oh, you need to buy this product so you can look like me or so you can be pretty or get rid of your pimples, stuff like that that you know, if they didn't do those type of things, these companies would make way less money. And it's sad because at the end of the day, money really like we need money. I'm not going to say money doesn't matter because it does, but I wish it mattered less, but it just isn't the reality. So those narratives really like I think companies just know that if you don't have that narrative, if you're out there promoting free thinking, that you're going to have less people looking outside of themselves. That's the last thing that these huge companies want you to do is think for yourself. They want you to just suck up whatever they're putting out there. Not to say every company does it, but if you really just kind of study some of this stuff, if you learn about marketing and learn about some of that stuff, that's like a tactic that's commonly used is like, you know, problem, reaction, solution. Problem is, you know, whatever, like you're fat or what or something, and then the reaction is like, the company or the, you know, promotion telling you like, oh, you're uh, you're overweight. That's not good. Solution. Here's a product to fix that. Stuff like that.
Right. Right. And I wonder how we like taken for instance like snowboarding or like I do jujitsu, right? Like when you go to those kind of things, they're inclusive environments. They're no one cares what race, what color, gender. It doesn't matter. It was just trying to, help each other. I wonder how we become that in a larger society.
Yeah, yeah, man, me too. I mean, I think it would really take a huge kind of reform in a lot of different industries in our world, and it would be a huge process that I think would take a really long time to completely uh, pull through. But I think it's gonna happen at some point. I'm really seeing, especially what's going on right now with the coronavirus stuff. I'm really seeing like, we see with the economy, it's like a big bubble that's always, getting bigger and expanding. The economy is doing great. It's doing great for 10 years since 2008, 12 years actually. And then it all popped due to this. And I think that's going to happen eventually with, maybe our political system and maybe our health, hopefully our healthcare system, because I think our healthcare system needs a total reform too. But I think it might help happen also with just how we consume products. I think at some point people are going to see past all this like BS that we see on TV with these huge companies like trying to just shove agendas down our throats. And people will eventually realize, like, okay, this is why so many people are so, why self esteem is so crushed these days. It's because of companies like, X or Y and Z telling us we need this or that, or else we're going to be ugly. It's going to pop at some point. And I think we'll see a huge change in our world when that happens. Humans will be enlightened to a whole nother level. It'll be super cool. And I think life will have a whole new purpose when that happens. When people start thinking for themselves, believing in themselves, and really looking inside of themselves. That's where it's all going to start, man, is people looking inside of themselves for answers.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we're getting closer and closer to that reformation with like for instance with COVID-19, people are protesting, which I'm not saying is a good or a bad thing, but the idea that people are becoming aware that the media and government don't really know everything.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm a big believer in, we're the only people that actually can save ourselves from anything in life. And we put, even if our government, not to say that, you know, I have nothing necessarily against them at all, but to put your kind of life in their hands, even, you're risking them kind of like, you never know what could happen, I guess is what I'm trying to say. We're in a sticky situation right now, where they kind of do have to change some things to keep us in a safe position, which is going it's good that that's happening, but it's also not going to help with us, you know, with that idea of we need to think for ourselves, because if we get too used to like relying on them to solve our problems, you know, we're going to be so it's going to be really hard for humans to kind of get back our comfort in ourselves, you know. So right now, with the pandemic, this is important for us to have that kind of like support from the government, but it's also, if we get too used to that and a huge crisis happens in 10 years from now where the government maybe is a little different, we're at risk of like, if they want to do something real crazy that we aren't down with, it might be harder for us to stand up and be like, no, we don't want that. So, you know, there's a whole lot that we got to be careful about.
Right. Yeah, and like from a law perspective, I could tell you like any time that a right is kind of taken away, you never get it back. Like surveillance or no matter
Yeah.
what the context is, once it's taken away, it's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I've been seeing a lot about that. This is really the first time I paid attention to stuff like that too. So it's hard for me to like look back at other times, like other big things that have happened, like 9/11, and remember like, oh yeah, that happened because I was like 2 years old when that went down. But I've heard that, and yeah, it's something that I kind of, I wouldn't say worry about, but it's something I'm like aware of, and you know, I've always been a big believer, obviously, in like we're responsible for our health at the end of the day. We really are. There's really no getting around that. And I don't know. I think we're just like, there've been a lot of people that have messed up in this situation. Why, that put us in this situation right now with COVID. But, at the end of the day, we also contributed to it by being arguably one of the most unhealthy countries in the world, if not the most unhealthy for the resources that America does have. And I think there's a lot we can learn, on our own, so that when a situation like this does come along again, we can make better choices and we can be more prepared. The government can be more prepared, but we can also be more prepared by caring a little more about our health and understanding that there is a lot we can do ourselves to keep ourselves healthier so that we can beat viruses like this. Obviously, some people are going to die, which sucks. But death is a part of life, and not to say that that's like, I'm not trying to belittle this virus at all, but there's things that we can do ourselves as human beings to um, put ourselves in more prepared positions.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that crazy that we're one of the most powerful nations in the world, but we have I believe we're the leading nation in heart disease and obesity.
Yeah, man, for real. That's another big issue going on. Like, that's another big thing where there's a lot of money to be made in sick people. If there's companies out there in America that, like Monsanto, that process the hell out of foods and make people sick, and those sick people go to the pharmaceutical companies to get, you know drugs that relieve symptoms. And obviously some of those drugs are great, and there's a lot of things in our healthcare system that are good, that you know so many doctors out there that have performed insane surgeries that have saved people's lives. That's not what I'm talking about, because that's the stuff that's amazing, but it's more just the fact that we allow people and companies to get away with stuff like that, where we totally know that they are poisoning some of our foods, and those foods are really what make us sick. And you know, again, there's a lot of money to be made in sick people, and I hate to say it, but pharmaceutical companies are not cute little charities on Main Street in some little town in California. It's a multi-trillion dollar industry, multi-billion, sorry. I don't know if it's a $1 trillion industry, but regardless, just the fact that those companies make so much money off of sick people, of course they're going to want to kind of keep people sick because they're like, oh, we're cutting $1 million paychecks. Let's keep some of this going. If there were no sick people, those companies wouldn't exist. Let's be real.
Right. Yeah, I just had like a whole conversation with somebody. Um, she's like a marijuana pharmacist now, but it's because
Hmm.
she saw what happened with the retail pharmaceuticals and how the little testing there is and how much they spend on lobbying, and it's crazy.
Yeah, man, it is crazy. I learned a little bit about that too, just about how some of these drugs are tested and stuff. And it is kind of sad that like I do wish our world or our country or our citizens just got educated on how this stuff works a little more, because there will be some people that will learn about how some of this stuff works and still, you know, take drugs that may not be good for them. But that's also okay if that's what they want to do, and if they, weighed the risks and they got the education, um, and they still want to, go that route. That's their freedom. They have the freedom to do that. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I think the fact that a lot of this information is kept from us on how some of these foods are processed is just kind of, really weird, and just is suspicious, man. It's just like, why do you not want us to know the truth about, the food in America? And it's not to say that they're hiding it all from us, but some of it is like, you know, someone will discover about some pesticide, and then some study will come out funded by a pharmaceutical company that's trying to debunk the fact that, Roundup or glyphosate is horrible for our stomachs. It's that type of stuff that really is like sad.
Yeah, you ever hear that quote? It's like a patient cured is a customer lost.
Exactly, man. Exactly. And that's really the approach, I think, for the Western medical system. Is we're not necessarily, obviously, if, this has nothing to do with like surgeons that are like doing heart transplants. That is like 100%, you know, patient cured kind of thing. But like it's more the people that just kind of give you a drug for relieving a symptom. You're not actually fixing the problem, and you're not actually telling the patient like, okay, you're having this condition because of eating too much of this. You're having, extreme skin issues because you're eating too much refined sugars. They're never going to tell you that. Some of them might, but they're more just going to tell you, like, oh, take this skincare product. And little do you know that skincare product is going to have a ton of toxins in it that just totally wreck your skin in the long run, or wreck your, other things in your body. Um, yeah, man, like they need to have that constant, obviously, if you cured people, you're going to have more people coming in still because our population's growing every day. But, they're kind of like, it's kind of like double dipping. People come in, they get a drug for their symptom, and then they come back with a new issue that pharmaceutical drug kind of contributed to. So it's just like a never ending chain.
Yeah. One of the biggest I would say biggest life-changing viewpoints on this happened when I was in college. One of my professors, this really old dude, he he said he was on about 14 to 15 medications that he was taking daily. And one day he decided he was tired of all the side effects. He was tired of feeling like crap every day. So he decided to flush them. And if he needed them, he would wake up in the hospital. And he said that that was 10 years ago from when he was telling us this story. And he said he's never felt better.
Yeah, yeah, man, for real. I've seen a lot of that with, certain friends and stuff. Um, and when I say what I just said earlier, like I totally there's a lot of things in our medical industry that are totally that I take my hat off to. They achieve amazing things, but at the end of the day, the best way to keep our nation truly healthy is if they're having some sort of issue, explain how you know, why they're in that position. Explain like, okay, you got this muscle issue because of this problem. If you stop doing this, it will get better. Or if you start doing this, it'll get better. That's the true way to approach it. Because, yeah, I mean, it would be one thing if our pharmaceutical industry wasn't so jacked up and putting out all these crazy drugs. If they were healthier and weren't causing other issues, then it'd be a different story. But we're just not living in a reality like that right now. And yeah, we're better off just learning about health beyond like, oh yeah, eat or drink milk, so that you have calcium in your system. That's like considered health education in school these days is giving you like some chart saying like, oh, you need this much, you know, this much of like carbohydrates or whatever. Like, yeah, that's good to know, but maybe teach kids a little bit about how, detrimental GMO foods are for you, or how, what too much fats and meats can do to your system, or what too much, um, you know, carbohydrates and sugars can do to your system. That's the stuff we really need to know.
Yeah, just give them some like multivitamin gummies. They'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah, it's way deeper than that.
Yeah, no, I think we could like talk about these issues pretty much all day.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It's good stuff to talk about, but yeah, it's all up for debate, and I definitely like I don't want to push that on anyone. I'm a big believer in like just do your own research and make up your own mind from what you see, and process information, you know, for what makes sense to you. And it's totally okay for people to disagree with us if they do on some of these topics. It's no issue at all, man. It's again at the end of the day, like we're humans, and free speech is we have the right to speak about what we believe in. Doesn't mean we're trying to yeah, tell people what to think. They can do their own, they can process this however they want.
Right. So do you have any maybe last words, new tips for or sorry, tips for new snowboarders, anything like that?
Yeah, man. For any new snowboarders, just get into it and enjoy it and snowboard with other people. And it's an art form before anything. Don't get into it just because you think it can be used as like a new sport like soccer or hockey. Competing is super fun, but it's also not going to be for everyone, and that's totally okay. And snowboarding, yeah, more. It's not more. It is for fun, and there's a lot of things you can do with it. And yeah, and I meant to say earlier, that's sweet you do jujitsu. That's been a big part of my life too, is martial arts, and that right there. Martial arts are, I think, a super cool thing. So that's cool you're doing that. But yeah, and all the kids out there listening, or whoever's listening, um, think for yourself and be a leader of yourself in your own life, and you're gonna crush it in whatever you do if you do that.
Awesome, man.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, thanks for coming on.
yeah, man. Thank you. Appreciate it, and yeah, keep it up. I dig the podcast.